Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another one of our live panel discussions from the JeopardyFan.com. Once again, I am Andy Saunders. I will be your host for this evening, and a big welcome once again to our panel. First up, we have Robin Carroll, who is a quarterfinalist in the Battle of the Decades. Also, we have Mark Dawson, the 2003 Tournament of Champions winner. We have my co-blogger at the Jeopardy fan, Jeannie Kenkel. Also, archivist and J-Board moderator, David Kendall. And finally, Colby Burnett, who was a semifinalist in the Battle of the Decades. Once again, this week we've got a bit of a discussion to go on. First up, the Battle of the Decades quarterfinals. As a recap of last week's shows, Monday, we had Roger Craig defeating Leszek Pavlovich and Robin Carroll. Tuesday saw Russ Schumacher beat Pam Mueller and Tom Nosek. Wednesday, Brad Rudder beat Dan Pawson and Mark Lowenthal. Thursday had Ken Jennings beat Rachel Schwartz and Tom Cubbage. And finally, Friday had Chuck Forrest beat Colby Burnett and Mark Dawson. The four wild cards were taken by Tom Cubbage, Leszek, Colby, and Pam. Again, I asked this... do you have any favorite moments from the quarterfinals or any big surprises? First up, I will ask this open-ended to the panel. Any opening thoughts?
You mean in terms of how the games turned out or content?
Let's go with both. I mean, you were obviously in the games, but how did you find the content, Mark?
I thought the content was great. It was generally not too difficult. One of the things that was curious for me, and Colby may be able to weigh in on this, I think we might have discussed this at the after party, is that it seemed like sometimes they would put stuff in weird places for us. Like there would be something easier at the bottom than the difficult stuff up on the top, and sometimes that would make you more hesitant to answer because you're like, they can't be asking that here. What do you think about that, Colby, Robin?
I think what alludes to what I remember that moment when the clue was about Montreal Island and it mentioned Pierre Trudeau Airport, and we're like, well, we all know where Pierre Trudeau International Airport is, and I know that I overthought it by saying, well, all right, so is there a special name for the island around Montreal? Because that's just too easy. And, I mean, there were a few moments like that in our game, I think.
Yeah,
so,
and Chuck even guessed the name of the airport that had been there before. I mean, that's how hard of a guess he put in on it, and I would have never even known what he guessed.
It can't be Montreal. It's too easy.
Robin,
a bit of geographical perspective. I think he guessed Mirabel, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah, Mirabel actually is still existing as an airport in Montreal. It was actually built after Trudeau was, as a way of...
It's in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere. They wanted to try to divert traffic away from Trudeau, and they built Mirabel. And they decided that, well, I guess the airlines decided that nobody really wanted to go out in the middle of nowhere to catch a flight. Everyone still preferred Trudeau, and so Mirabel became this white elephant in the middle of, 50 or 35 miles outside of Montreal.
okay, learn something.
Yeah, learn something new every day, but sorry about that. Carry on.
Mark, were you about to ask me something?
Well, did you have that same impression? I can't remember us talking about that.
Oh, about where the daily doubles were and that sort of thing, and the relative difficulty?
Yes, exactly.
I was not really thinking about that. I was just trying so desperately to ring in that I wasn't thinking, is this a real hard clue? Is this an easier clue? I watched it again today, actually, and I realized my memory of it is like, Dresden in 1945 or something, but it really wasn't as bad as I remember it. I actually kind of hung in there through the first round. The second round, for the second round, though, I could not ring in to save me between Leszek and Roger. They were so fast, and I couldn't string two clues together and get control of the board. So they were doing, from the bottom up, which drives me bananas. And I don't know, maybe they felt that some of the bottom row clues were easier than expected, or just they were really confident about certain things like African capitals and whatnot.
It seemed like Leszek had studied specifically for African capitals. Honest to goodness, he was so ready for each of those questions.
It's just one of those things that will not stick in my head. I knew Windhoek, though.
Yes, that's a good one.
Okay. One thing I noticed when I was watching the quarterfinals myself, and I guess maybe Robin could speak to this a little bit as well. He seemed to me like he was very nervous on camera during the tournament, at least compared to his Tournament of Champions and his earlier appearances. Did you guys find that as well?
For Roger?
Yes, Roger.
I had never seen Roger play, so I didn't really know what to compare that against. I mean, I knew how much money he'd racked up and what a great champion he is. So I just sort of took that as his playing style, that he rings in fast, but then he's kind of hesitant on his response, and he seemed to, search a little bit, like take a minute or so longer before making his next selection. And I think Leszek did a little bit of that too, so maybe there was some strategizing behind that. I don't know, but I don't know. Maybe some of you who are more familiar with Roger's play could speak to his manner.
It just seems like Roger to me. I mean, he only has really Roger mode when he's on. I didn't really notice anything different about that.
Ken will do that hesitating thing sometimes too, and I used to think he was sandbagging sometimes because he would hesitate on stuff that I thought, well, he's got to know that. But after being through practice with him and watching better to see what he knows and doesn't know, I think that Ken's pauses are genuine. He really thinks it out. So
yeah,
I assume
he mentioned that in one of his books too, that he sometimes rings in early, so they had the extra 2 or 3 seconds to think it out. I'm sure he mentioned that in Brainiac or something.
I did that. I mean, I have seen that in his book, but I just felt to myself that Roger took an extra couple of negs. Just to me, it seemed like he might have been a little bit nervous, but maybe I was the only one who thought that. Jeannie, I think you wanted to bring something up at this point?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Chuck Forrest had a tweet from a couple days ago. Okay, I found it. It says, I don't always watch reruns, but you don't want to miss tonight's Jeopardy. Some say it was the greatest game ever played. That's referring to yesterday's episode.
Oh, yesterday's episode, not Friday's.
No.
Fridays was so much better.
I don't know. I had to go back and look and see which episode he was talking about. So.
Well, I thought it was yesterday was very good, but I forgot when I was watching it that Ken missed a big daily double, and that game could have really gone a lot of different ways. It wasn't as much of a runaway as today's.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Moving on, I guess. I would say, obviously, in quarterfinals, wagering is a lot different with the wild cards in play. When watching, because, I mean, obviously, in Colby and Mark's case, you obviously didn't see any of the other bets until they actually aired. But I guess, Robin saw them all. Were there any bets that came as big surprises to you from anyone in the quarterfinals? Was there anything you might have done differently had you been in another contestant's shoes, I guess?
I'm terrible at betting strategy. I just generally bet everything. So in this case, that was my only option. But, it was hard to know what the sweet spot was for a wild card, and I don't know about anybody else. I went in thinking it would be somewhere around $15,000, and that seems to be what I saw people hitting. Pam was just under that. Colby, you had 15,000, didn't you?
See, in my prelim, yes. In the quarters I was the last one in, and I had 11. So 11 grand even.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Leszek had 17. I don't remember all the rest of them, but definitely people were betting conservatively. And I'd never really thought of second place betting to not to win, but to just to not be surpassed by third place, and also thinking about getting into the semis. So I don't know, probably the wrong person to ask about a wagering question.
For me, I wanted to get 14, but I saw that was unreasonable. I didn't want to. By the time we got through the material on our game on Friday, I'd really toned it down. I felt like anybody getting over $10,000 had a shot, and if you had over $12,000, you're probably in. And that's, of course, hindsight. But that's kind of what our thinking. I seem to remember, at least some discussion of people in the green room, who were talking about stuff, is, what do you think your number is to get in? But I thought the material was hard enough and our game was well fought enough that if we were only getting close to $10,000 each, that perhaps the same was true in the earlier games. So that's part of why I bet low. I didn't dislike the category. I just felt like that was you lick your finger and stick it up in there and you think, well, what do I feel? What bet gives me the best chance to move on? And that's kind of where I was at that. I really was not playing to win. I was playing to move on.
Yeah, when you were talking about how you were discussing what the optimal bet is, I know that topic comes up on JBoard a lot about what we as a viewing audience can expect to be the wildcard cutoff, and it usually is around the 14,000 range. So I'm not at least a bit surprised because everybody in that green room, of course, knows Jeopardy, knows the past tournament, knows the wildcard history. So yeah, I'm not the least bit surprised that conversation happened in J room with all those people there.
Now I'm interested to ask Colby because I didn't talk to him about it. Is how he came up with his number for his bet. I told you basically how mine came up, but Colby, what did you?
I had 11-8, and I figured that I knew you had to go harder than I did. I mean, you weren't behind me by much, but I knew your bet had to be significant. And really what happened was I was pulling that final would not be difficult, and that 11 grand would be enough. Because in my understanding, I figured that, Ken and Brad, they would, come out walloping people, and maybe one or two, maybe I think I said, well, maybe one wild card will emerge from those games combined. So with that in mind, I said, well, I don't have to shoot for the best second place performance. I need to shoot for the fourth best second place performance, and that's pretty much how that came about. I figured that would be around, I figured the tops would be around 14 or 15, and the low would be around 11, so I stuck there.
And obviously, hindsight worked well, or at least hindsight showed that number worked really well for you, Colby. So,
I mean, I'll take it, but after getting in by the skin of my teeth, I looked at tomorrow like I went around the hotel and talking to people. I said to most people, it's like Ghostbusters, man. Choose the form of the destroyer. So it's just like.
You looked
they're not going to have, because I figured that they wouldn't want Ken and Roger and Brad to play each other in the semi. So I was like, all right, which one are they going to give me? So, and I remember I went out to O'Brien's and I went with Jeannie, I went with Robin, and it's just like, shouldn't you be resting? Like, no, it won't make a difference. So.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see you that night, Colby. I thought for sure that you'd be taking it easy and kind of mentally preparing for the next day,
I can very much remember, Colby, when you were announced as the last wildcard winner, how you looked a combination of relieved and surprised all at the same time.
Yeah, it's just, at that point, it's like, all right, whatever happens, happens. I think I did the right thing. I think then I'm just, okay, let's keep doing this. I get on TV one more time.
Did you kind of suspect that you were the last that they would call your name?
I was surprised because everything since I didn't see any of the matches other than my own, so everything that I am basing my judgment upon is sheer. It's I won't say conjecture, but my understanding of what people are capable of, what I expected the so-called big dogs to do, and hope that it benefited me in the end. And I mean, I guess in the end it worked out.
Yeah. From my perspective, I thought we got. No, go ahead. Well, just on my betting or whatever, I felt like one of the things that makes it hard to pick is like in my Tournament of Champions, 0 got one person in, okay, because everyone bet so much. It's the only time that's ever happened.
I was really hoping for that.
Yeah, so you never know. You never know. It's kind of like a horse race. Sometimes race just breaks down, you know. And they asked some very difficult Final Jeopardies, but honestly, after I saw them, the only one that I didn't have a shot at was ours. In fact, the only thing that bugged me was the British Thinkers Final Jeopardy, in that it was just so easy that it made the one we had to deal with, Colby, Chuck, and I, seem ludicrously difficult, at least to me. So that's my sour grapes moment for tonight. I thought we played a good game, the three of us, for the end of the day. We were kind of gassed. I don't know, Colby, were you tired? Chuck and I kind of looked tired. You're young and you don't maybe not show it as much, but I think we were a little gassed.
I mean, so as a person, this is my third tournament, right?
Right.
So the first two, the first tournament I went, teachers tournament I went first. TOC I went second. So like there's this huge load off my shoulders and I can just sit back and be entertained. And now I'm at the absolute end. And you see everybody leave and they're not coming back. And as much as I enjoyed your company and Chuck's, well, there's two other people in the back room. There's not a whole lot of stimulation as compared to how I felt the first two times that I went. So yeah, I was somewhat out of it. And, especially that first half was all things that I'm not good at, and clearly you and Chuck were. That's why I ended that round with $200, so that wasn't fun. So, I mean, I was just kind of shocked. I was kind of stirred awake, and I remember asking Maggie, it's like, oh, and when she asked, "Oh, can we get anything for you?" It's like, "Oh, could you put things that I know on the next board? Because that'd be good."
I heard that. I overheard that. Actually. I may have told other people that you said that, but I'm not going to say who.
I mean, that's fine. That was so far out of my wheelhouse that first round. So, they take us back. They give us that greasy pizza, and you just need to make the best. You just need to make the most of it.
Yeah.
So.
And I know this was brought up briefly by Mark. Wednesdays and Fridays finals were both triple stumpers. Was anyone surprised by this?
So the one about the Montgomery bus boycott, there were so few actual clues in that one that. It's just basically you need to know a date. Like, I would say the average person doesn't know about a specific Supreme Court ruling in, reference to that. And pretty much that's what it came about. Like, what happened around the end of 1955? That's pretty much what that question was about. And it involved a Supreme Court case. So watching that go dead, I wasn't shocked about that at all.
I got it right off.
Well, I'm glad I was not in that game then.
I'm from Alabama, and I write for Honda Campus All-Star Challenge.
Well, that'll do it.
So I write about civil rights stuff all the time. I didn't know any of those facts, but it immediately hit me that that's what it was. But I didn't know the facts either.
Watching at home, I had the same thing as Mark. I got it, but I didn't know any of the facts. I just went back the number of days, and it's like, that sounds like the Montgomery bus boycott.
Exactly. What else could it be?
Yeah.
That was it for me, anyway. It's just like that's the only thing that really happened then.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to make Mark or Colby feel bad if I don't. So if you got Friday's final and you're on the panel, don't say you did or didn't.
Which one? I
I'm not going to say I did, because I didn't.
That was the Book of Mormon final?
Oh, that one. No, that was hopeless.
Yeah, I didn't get that one.
If I didn't tell this little story before, the reason why, it's like what Robin was talking about before, where you do this plus this equals that. This is a case where you had a book from 1831. There weren't a whole lot of authors that had books at that time. And, well, I mean, there were, but it's not going to be somebody like Jane Austen, who's earlier, or Herman Melville or Hawthorne, who are later. It could have been the guy who wrote Notre Dame and Les Miserables, Victor Hugo. He's that time period. But there's just nobody in that time period. And then it said shares a title with something that premiered recently. I didn't make the Broadway connection. That might have made it easier. I was thinking movies. But there was no clue that the content was related. It's just sharing a title. So I thought I might be the artist or some sort of generic title like that. But I couldn't come up with anything.
What really threw me off was the "it was published" thing. I mean, yeah, it was published, but you don't really think of the Book of Mormon as the same as, say, Les Miserables or To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever. It's a book, yeah, but you don't really think of it being published at a certain time and all that.
Exactly, and is it fiction or nonfiction, and how do you get that?
I think they wanted to avoid the clue to avoid the fiction or nonfiction debate, and they did that well, but, I mean, there's only so much. You got the Mormon in the Bible, so you don't want to pin it too close, but on the other hand, how do you
fiction or nonfiction?
What's that, Robin? I didn't hear that.
Is the Book of Mormon fiction or nonfiction?
Yeah.
It's a point of view, I think.
Okay.
And I think the entire, and all the, or at least all the viewers, for the sake of the conspiracy theorists, probably are happy Ken didn't see that final.
I can tell you that that of the people who were in the audience that I knew, somebody was consoling me and said, well, nobody in our group got it except for, and even the Mormon in our group, I don't know if that was Ken or maybe somebody in Ken's family, I don't know where this person was sitting, the Mormon in their group missed it. They said the only person who got it was someone who had seen the show not long after it opened, and therefore was clued into the Broadway show. And I didn't think Broadway, I was thinking movies.
Yeah, I was in a similar vein. It's like I'm thinking, you don't think of Joseph Smith as an author.
Yeah.
You think of, and so I just assume that this has to be literature in the the common sense of the word, and so I was completely thrown.
Yeah.
So it looks like the general consensus was that, yeah, definitely a Friday was a tough final. But then again, I think this has come up a couple of times in our previous discussions. The writers aren't afraid to throw a really, really tough question at you guys to see who really knows their stuff.
Yes. And I was ready for a Book of Mormon question. We'd seen some before, and there was lots of good material you could mine from that. It's not like I was unaware of the Book of Mormon, either the play or the original. I'd kind of prepared some stuff for that. So,
yeah. And so I enjoy the fact that I brought an almanac from like 2012, and I've and just all sorts of madness and weird things that happen. So I had Ken and Brad sign it, because it showed Ken and Brad facing off against Watson, and literally 2 steps beneath it was a nice section on the Book of Mormon. So I kind of laughed. It's like these 2 things happened around the same time. Like, okay.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, there's a couple of things like that for me. One of them is for the classical music category, the question I'm most proud of getting right was the Frederick Delius question. But I had been listening to Frederick Delius just a couple of weeks before, so he wasn't. It just happened to be that I was listening to classical music while I was either working or studying, and there was some Delius in that. Then the second one, though, is the madrigal thing. They spent a whole Sunday doing madrigals on the local public radio station here, and I listened to the program. And I put a note card. It was sitting right beneath my monitor for 2 weeks. It just said Madrigal on it because I was going to go look up madrigals and find out some information on it. So when we get in the round and it's classical music, it's a good category for me. And it has this clue about fa la 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 la.
Yeah.
I didn't have any reason to pick madrigal, but the only fa la 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 I know is carols, and I really felt like that was a difficult question.
That was such a screwball question. Like,
Nate is what that was.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't unfair, but I mean, for 90% of the viewers out there, or maybe 95% of the viewers out there, fa la 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 is Christmas carols. You know?
Yes.
Exactly. That's why it's Negbait.
Yeah, negbait. That's a good thing. I guessed twice that I can remember in that game, and I missed them both, and that's why I don't like to guess. So, and that's one of them. I bit on that.
Okay. Another thing I noticed. Rachel was allowed to bring her index cards on set and mentioned them in her interview. Arthur Chu, he was live tweeting the episode at that point, and he was very surprised that the production crew had allowed Rachel to bring index cards on set, even though they were for nostalgia purposes, obviously. Do you guys think she should have been allowed to have the index cards on set like that?
I was surprised too. I'm wondering if maybe she was allowed to just get them for the interview section, show them, and I don't know, have them scurried away before they brought playback, because it does seem kind of odd, and I know I kind of raised an eyebrow when they did that in the interview.
I was in the audience. I didn't see anything like that, which doesn't mean it didn't happen, but how could she really cheat with them? I mean, you can't just put the game on hold and shuffle through your index cards.
That's true.
In the one-off chance they ask you what's at the top, then you're in the clear. But
yeah, pretty much not a threat of cheating.
Yeah.
So I of all the things, you're not. It shouldn't benefit you in the slightest. So go ahead and take out the darn things.
Now, maybe if it was Braille and it was Eddie up there, maybe we'd have.
That's a bit different,
but yeah, I agree with you guys, and I just can't imagine, especially because the thousandths of seconds between Colby getting in before me or me trying to beat Chuck, and the whole confidence thing. Is Chuck beat me to some stuff that I really would have liked to have got. I think Colby's a little bit faster than me anyway, but that fraction of a second, yeah, you could never even look down at a card. You don't have time to do that.
But regardless, though, they don't let you bring any kind of paper up to the set with you, do they?
Unless it's like a mustache or a cigar.
That's true. Stephanie had her mustache on a stick.
Yeah, but we didn't get to see that on TV. Nobody got to see that. But it was a lot of fun. I wish they should have outtake show.
People do bring little, charms or, lucky coins or that sort of thing now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's different. I mean, paper, a sheet of paper, pads of paper. From what I gather, you're not allowed to bring that with you. And I'm sure that there's a few other things that you're not allowed to bring with you. I've never been there, but almost everybody else here has, and maybe they can mention what you can.
They probably made I'm sorry, David. They probably made an exception because she would have had that written in her notes as to whatever, and they decided it was okay.
That everybody knows.
Right.
If you surreptitiously bring it up with you, that's kind of pushing it.
One thing you guys didn't mention is about Dan Poston's game with his tiara, wearing the tiara at the end of it. We haven't talked about that show. Those shows.
We actually talked about that last week in our last live hangout. Actually, after his prelim game, his tiara was brought up, and when you get you should take a chance and look back at Stephanie's thoughts on that. She seemed to be not very happy that Dan was given a tiara and Stephanie was not.
and Marie is in high water too.
every day. You just carry roses and just sort of walk around campus like, just waving.
But it's just Dan's sense of humor is so droll. When you look at him, you think he's got no sense of humor, but the sense of humor he just busts out, and it really takes you by surprise.
And it's very biting, like biting, like it's just like it's there, and then like wait, did he just? And then it's gone, and it's great guy. So I had a lot of fun with him.
Well, I'll tell you from my perspective, I was the alternate for day 2, and I was so much better rested going in with no pressure. I was much faster on the buzzer in practice. I was hating life. I felt very, very lucky to be able to play along with the big kids who made it. But I also just hated it because I knew at the end of the day I was going to be sitting in the audience and not getting my chance up there on stage. But I was a lot faster in practice and had a good practice. Wait, I was going to make a point there. Oh, yeah. But the fun in practice was some of the sense of humor stuff that people did. I'll give Ken credit for getting that started by putting in funny names and, on the people's instead of signing in with your own name, signing in with various funny names. And that was just a nice, comfortable practice on set. Wish I got to play.
Maybe when Alex calls it a career, we'll get another run at it.
Yeah.
I'd like to get on first, and I'm sure David would be the same way. But,
we'd like to have you join us.
That would be nice. So yes, a couple of other things. Season 31 starts next Monday. I guess for the panelists in general, is there anything that you guys would like to see happen in Season 31? I know the Tournament of Champions is going to be airing soon in that season, but yeah, is there anything you guys would like to really see happen over the next season of Jeopardy?
When is the TOC scheduled? November?
I'm not quite sure when the scheduled tapings or airings are going to be, but I do know that it is happening.
I know one thing about Season 31 that I found kind of surprising. I was looking on Jboard this afternoon, and I think it was Mark posted up a couple of season teasers that seemed kind of interesting that Jeopardy's putting out on the air about what to expect in Season 31. I don't know if you guys have been on the board and seen that.
Is that Mark Barrett?
Yeah, Mark Barrett put up a couple of videos that Jeopardy's been.
What are they?
Well, the main gist of the videos is talking about the stash is back.
Oh yeah.
That's what.
Whoa! I see that. Wow. Okay. Yes. Mark Barrett put up some promos over at Jboard. If anyone hasn't seen them and wants to look at them, you can find them. They are in the Milestone and S31 thread over at Jboard.
The stash is back.
Yes, the time. Yep, apparently. So we've got some things to look at for season 31. If you're Canadian, there is going to be some changes in the what networks or television stations are airing the show. I'm going to announce this as a public service announcement to my fellow Canadians who may be watching this either in the future or live. As far as my research shows, it looks like there are 3 Canadian stations airing the show this year. Yes TV, first of all, the station that is formerly CTS, is airing it at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Czech out of Victoria is airing it at 7:30 Pacific. And what's exciting for me, and maybe exciting for other people who might be not employed 9 to 5, NTV out of Newfoundland. They, for the first time since 2008, I believe, or 2008, for the first time since 2008, they have Jeopardy again. That will be airing at its usual time for them of 4:30 Newfoundland time, 3 o'clock Eastern. So if you're Canadian, get satellite and get NTV. You are in luck. You will have an early Jeopardy. I think I am very much looking forward to this myself because I enjoy being able to watch Jeopardy early in the afternoon.
I get it at 4:30 Central, but as I mentioned before, I watch it through the Minneapolis NBC station.
Yeah, and Jeannie will appreciate this as well from my end, as it means that when I'm blogging, I'll be able to get my blogging done earlier.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious to know if there are any other backstage stories that Robin, Colby, Mark, even Jeannie, you were in the audience for these. If you guys have any stories you'd like to share, or any other ones. I know, Mark, you waxed poetic a bit about the warm-ups from the second day and how much you enjoyed those, but were there any other backstage stories you'd like to share?
I just enjoyed getting to watch all the games. I was very nervous having to go first, and I saw my opponents, and I got more nervous. And but it was really neat to be able to watch everybody else and keep a mental tally of the potential wild cards.
Colby, do you have anything you'd like to? Do you have any stories, maybe about the, I guess the Black Ken Jennings?
Oh yeah, so kind of the way that worked out with so Ken kind of opened the salvo by referring to himself as the White Colby, which I looked at that as like, I've made it. No matter what happens, like that's pretty solid right there.
I was talking about cheese.
See, but that means it gets the guns thrown at Trebek and the death glare in return. But I mean, we opened up on that. I was in LA, and so what is it? I went by I nicknamed myself Swaggy C. That was pretty solid. It was fun because I was definitely at the point where I know what I'm capable of. Some things can go my way, but otherwise, I'm just I'm going to do the best that I can, and that means staring down Roger or Ken or Brad. Well, that's fine. So, I mean, I'm at least going to go out of my way and have fun right now, because it's going to get real really soon. That was it. There were relatively, compared to the aughts tournament, there were relatively few shenanigans.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, going back into the time machine a little bit, we're actually there's actually an anniversary being celebrated this week. The J Archive actually had its first games go into the J Archive database 10 years ago this week. Of course, the official launch was technically November 30th, 2004, but the first games did go into the archive 10 years ago this week. And of course, the game Jeopardy, I would say, has definitely changed as a result of the existence of the archive. To the panel, all of you, how would you say the game has changed in the past 10 years because of the existence of J Archive?
Well, I know it's such an important study tool. I mean, I think that's its primary purpose, actually.
Yeah, somebody mentioned that. I know it was brought up on this panel before too, that somebody mentioned that in their it was Russ, I think, that mentioned how important it was a study tool for him. And I know us archivists just always love the shout outs on the show.
For me, I like it as not as a study tool, but rather as a way of kind of gauging what somebody's real performance was. I mean, you can look at choreots and all that jazz, but and that's a useful function of it. I don't have people's choreots memorized. I go look it up on the archive, but also to look up specific events that are sort of what you might call bellwethers. Because I mean, there's material and there's material, but there's sort of like ways to gauge someone's performance by particular gets they get or not. But I did not study from the Jeopardy archive. I had other material that I'd had lying around in shoe boxes for all these years. But
and another thing that must be said on this topic too is Roger Craig wouldn't be Roger Craig without the archive. He's mentioned before about how he prepared his computer program to.
Oh yeah.
Clues in it, and that made Roger Craig who he is. So without the archive, there wouldn't be a Roger Craig. But also speaking on the archive, I wanted to say that with the archive, the thing that surprised me the most is how much Jeopardy, Sony Pictures, whatever, has actually somewhat tolerated the archive being out there. I mean, of course, we're not associated with Jeopardy and all that, and we could always get a cease and desist from them, but they seem to like it as well as much as the fans do. They don't mind shout-outs on there. And we're always very grateful for the tolerance, I guess, that we get from Sony as well.
Yeah.
And I should also say that I don't know how many of you read the book on Watson, Final Jeopardy, but I think that without the archive, Watson probably wouldn't have been Watson.
That's true too. Yeah.
Absolutely true.
So, a little bit of a kind of one, I guess, the final question from my notes has to do with the upcoming Tournament of Champions. Well, I mean, as best as I can determine, Jerry Slowick has been taken out of the field following his recent arrest. I don't feel I need to go into specific details as to what that was about. It's been around the news a little bit. But, of course, by my calculations, first alternate, Mark Jappinga, he now makes it in. How do we think Mark will do in the Tournament of Champions as the 15th player?
Is this Tournament of Champions almost all five-timers end up, like Super Champs?
Yeah. Mark is the only, with the exception of the winner of the college and the tournament winner. He's the only
Mark's the only
highest scoring four-time winner.
So I think that alone is going to make this Tournament of Champions something. I can't remember the last Tournament of Champions where we didn't have like it all five times and up. I think
it would have been around 2001, 2003 because we're Brad. I think Alan Bailey got held back because because they had too many spots for five-time champions. Mark would probably know more about this, but
well, I think Alan's might have. He was the first alternate, and I was the second alternate. That show or that Tournament of Champions aired immediately after 9/11 in 2001, and so that they brought me in as a second alternate simply because they were afraid that they weren't going to be able to actually get everybody out there who had qualified.
Aired after 9/11 or taped after 9/11?
Taped after 9/11. And in fact, my Tournament of Champions was just airing. My first show was 9/14. And so I got a call from Suzanne, one of the contestant coordinators at the time, and she said, "Hey, Mark, can you fly out here? We need you to be a second alternate." And I said, "Well, I've been hungover all week because all I've been doing is viewing parties. I'm really not in any sort of Jeopardy shape. But I'll come, Suzanne, I'll come." So I went and I got to sit and watch shows. Alan and I don't know if I said this to you guys before, but Alan and I actually graduated from high school the same year, less than 12 miles apart. He went to school with a whole bunch of people I went to high school with in elementary school, but we'd never met each other until that green room. So kind of interesting meeting someone that you graduated from 20 whatever years before that you'd never gotten a chance to meet. So that was kind of cool. But anyway, I drone on. I think he may have been qualified for it. He was a five-time champ, so he was going to get in, either that one or the next one. So I bet I can't really say whether or not he was qualified for that one in 2003.
Yeah, having all these five-time champs in the upcoming TLC, plus the buzz, the constant buzz about Arthur Chu, the constant buzz about Julia, having both of those people that the show has been pushing. It's gonna be something that is more one to watch. Definitely.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch. This is the first one I've really wanted to watch in a while. Yeah. I think Chu is a good player. Arthur Chu, he's a good player. And I think a couple of the women that I saw play, they're good, but they're maybe not as good as their record. But a couple of the women, they were really great players on anybody's level. I would have loved to have seen them in the Decades tournament, but that's just the way it goes. And I really want to see if they're as good as I thought they were.
Yeah, that Sandy Baker, I think she's like a 5- or 6-time champion. I got to see her play in person because she taped the day after the 80s episodes taped. So, yeah, at the end of that week, she was a 3-time champion, and I actually forgot all about it, so I didn't know how far she'd go or anything, and that's going to be fun to see her again.
I just think
sorry, go ahead, Colby.
Sorry, I just think that this tournament is super balanced in terms of, what anybody can do. I don't think nobody out there seems invincible. And you think about Mark, well, he won 4 times, but he took out Ben, and he kind of took himself out of the running with by overthinking the final in the game that he got, or the game that he was taken out. And yeah, there are just a lot of heavy hitters, and people focus on Arthur and Julia, but they hit the wrong board, and that's it. And it's really that simple.
There's a 2/3 rule
for everybody.
So, all right, I think I've said my piece.
Yeah, I think that I have a feeling I know who I'll be cheering for, and it's a person who has sat on this panel a couple of times. I will be cheering for Mr. Ben Ingram in this Tournament of Champions, but I hope he does well, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he's been on the panel. I just he's been my favorite. He was a favorite of mine to watch anyway, so we shall see how well that goes. Obviously I've asked Robin, Mark, Colby, because you guys have been on the panel before, as to what you've been doing, so I don't need to really ask that again. I'd like to thank everyone once again, Robin, Mark, Jeannie, David, and Colby, for your participation on this live panel tonight. We'll be back discussing the semifinals and the finals next Monday night, which also happens to be opening night for Jeopardy, Season 31. Once again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for taking part. Before I go, I'm just going to quickly check my email, just in case somebody has decided to leave us one last question. My inbox is empty, so I think we're safe to go. Once again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for participating, and have a great night. See you next Monday.
Thanks, Ben.